When we talk about literacy, we talk about reading and writing. But in political terms, political literacy, how literate are we as a people? Going into the 2019 elections, are we asking the right questions? My name is Isabella Akinseye, and this is Politico Politica.
Politico Politica with Isabella Akinseye.
Welcome back to Politico Politica with me, your host, Isabella Akinseye. Now, let's meet our guest. She is a Senior Economic Advisor, Africa Economic Development Policy Initiative at Open Society Foundation. She is a Chartered Accountant and former Vice President of the World Bank for Africa. She holds a Master's degree in International Law and Diplomacy from the University of Lagos, a Master's degree in Public Policy and Administration from Harvard University's Kennedy School of Government, and a Bachelor's degree from the University of Nigeria. She served as Minister of Education and Minister of Solid Minerals in the Nigerian government during the Obasanjo administration. She co-founded the Bring Back Our Girls Pressure Group in 2014, raising global awareness for the rescue of over 200 schoolgirls kidnapped in Borno. She is the presidential candidate of Allied Congress Party of Nigeria. She is Dr. Oby Ezekwesili. Dr. Ezekwesili, welcome to Politico Politica.
Thank you very much. Glad to be here.
So we're going to go straight to our topic of the day, which is political literacy. When we talk about literacy, we talk about reading and writing. But in political terms, how will you rate the Nigerian electorate?
I think that we are still probably 3 out of a possible 10. And the reason is simple. We suffered many years of militarization. And so my generation and the one before us literally knew military rule more than we knew democracy. It's now a very young democracy in the sense that those amongst your younger generation born in 1999 will come to 20 years. They are the first-time voters that we're going to be seeing. They are still an insignificant portion of the rest of the population. So the literacy level on democracy and what democracy requires of citizens is pretty low. So a lot of political literacy campaigns, a lot of civic engagement would be necessary to take us to higher scores of possible 7 out of 10. So we need to double up effort quickly.
Okay, that was one of my questions. But in terms of the causes, I know you already attributed to military rule. What else is responsible for this political illiteracy?
I think there's a lot of apathy in the sense that citizens have felt that government really doesn't play much of a role in their lives. So, they kind of have this attitude of, I beg, let me mind my business and do the things that are important to me, forgetting that there's nothing more important than having governments that function. The second thing is that the understanding of governance as a concept is still a bit distorted. People assume that for you to have a role in governance, you must be an appointed official of government or be somebody who is working, in government. But governance as a construct is something that requires the engagement of the citizens. There is a demand side and there is a supply side to governance. If those who are citizens don't play their active citizenship role well, there is no demand side for governance. And because you don't have a demand side for governance that is well developed, the supply side, which is the side of the people who make up government, will do anything they like. They will behave like monopolists. They have no pressure to do governance that delivers results.
Okay, so what will you say the media can do in bringing about a solution to this problem of political illiteracy?
We often say that the media is a purveyor of public policy. the media is really at the heart of democratic accountability, because by just the way that it focuses on the issues of governance and the way it reports on matters of public interest, it can create the necessary momentum for the democracy to work. It makes, that's why of all the professions, it's only the journalists that actually find themselves mentioned expressly in the constitution of the country. The three arms, the executive, the legislature, the judiciary, and then the media. The media is expected to help advance this knowledge of democracy and the political systems. But sometimes I think it's a tough responsibility to simply give the media without the tools for them to do this effectively. And so civic organizations that have the content on what needs to be known by the populace can actually partner. So partnerships are important. Don't simply say the media has to. Who delivers the content? Who develops the content? And then so that media can use its platform to distribute. And then who ensures that there are costs involved? How do you, sort of balance the costs? Because media needs to function. Media needs to be profitable for it to continue to go.
Thank you, Dr. Ezekwesili, for your contributions on our topic of the day. Would like to hear from you on political illiteracy. Please go on our social media platforms, tweet at PP with Isabella, use the hashtag Politico Politica, and do follow us on Instagram and Facebook. The handle to follow is Politico Politica. The show returns shortly. Do stay with us. Welcome back to Politico Politica with me, your host, Isabella Akinseye. Before the break, we discussed political illiteracy with our guest, Dr. Ezekwesili. Dr. Ezekwesili, it's now time for our Politics and More segment. So when did you decide that you would want to become the president of Nigeria? Is it something that you've harbored as a child? Oh, what would I like to be when I grow up? I would like to be the president.
No, not at all. The one that I've told the story often, I thought of as a child was, my dad telling me, I asking my dad, why is it that I see so much poverty around me? Why are we not like the countries that I see on television? And my dad saying that it is the difference is that one country is governed well, the other country is not governed well, and that there's something called good governance. And so as a child, I was fortunate, privileged, to become one of those that founded Transparency International. It was consistent with this issue of fixing, bad governance and promoting good governance. And then, but I came to the conclusion, actually, end of 2017, it wasn't about running. It was about what we just discussed about political consciousness. I came to the understanding that our citizens, not being politically conscious, were leaving the space wide open for our political class to define it in any way they liked. I began that idea that I would spend much more time talking about politics and how politics relates to governance, how it relates to economic development, and to really get the citizens who follow me to see that we needed to do more. That was 2017. By the beginning of 2018, a tragedy occurred that really went, got me, off on that journey, even faster than I imagined. And that was when the Benue killings hit us in the early hours of the new year. And by that time, I thought to myself, this tragedy happened. The reaction of the government to the tragedy was similar to what one had seen that happened under the previous administration, and the fact that the kind of way that the Nigerian life was being devalued, as if to say nothing happened. The next thing that I heard the government talking about was how they were preparing to launch the re-election bid of the president on a day that we were seeing pictures of Nigerians gruesomely murdered, children, their mothers, grandparents, and all kinds of things. I mean, it was horrific. It was really horrific. And so I say, I am giving a red card to the political class. And that's how I started tweeting about red card to the political class. And many Nigerians said, we are also tired. We're giving red cards to this political class because there's no difference. You know, whether it's APC, PDP, we don't see the difference. It's like 6.5 dozen. So from, you know, that Twitter engagement came an organic move that said we can have a movement of citizens who are saying we're fed up with this kind of quality of governance, and that there is need for our political system to reinvent itself and to bring in the kinds of minds that would look at politics differently from this bad leadership, self-aggrandizement, incompetency, mediocrity, and every kind of thing that, you know, that just shows a lack of understanding that governance must be to improve the quality of life of the citizens. So it was from that we then went on to do something called the Summit of the Alternative, sort of saying if you give red card to certain people, then you need to be thinking who are the credible, you know, substitutes to those that you're giving red cards to. And so that process was on. We got to the point where we looked at what was going on in the polity. People were saying, we are getting ready to go and choose between the lesser.
Like
yeah, you said. They were getting ready to go and choose the lesser of two evils. So we were back again to what, you know, what had happened in previous elections. So I said, you know, Nigeria doesn't have 4 years to experiment at this momentum of failure. And this pattern of entrenched acceptance of failure, you know, it really got to me, especially when you juxtapose it with the fact that a report came out showing that we had become the world capital of poverty. And our political class didn't even stop for a minute to say, oh, these victims of poverty are the people that we govern.
At any point, did you ever feel your gender was going to be a disadvantage, as we don't have any female presidents in Nigeria? So do you think you're going to be able to break that jinx?
My gender hasn't been a factor in my believing that I could solve problems. Otherwise, it would have held me back. What my answer usually is to that question you asked is that, look, I have track record of having solved problems in different contexts. I mean, you can say my life story, my career path has been a career path where I have had to solve problems, work in public sector, work in private sector, work in civil society, worked in international development, helped leaders to build their nations, helped to ensure economic prosperity in countries, solved governance issues, done things that have brought me face to face with the regular citizens. Those skills that one has acquired and the character, especially that character, that steadfastness of character, to subscribe to certain fundamental values that matter for the growth of society, they all stand me out.
We'll be taking a quick breather on Politico Politica, but don't go anywhere because our Project Nigeria segment comes up after this break. Welcome back to Politico Politica with me, your host, Isabella Akinseye. Before the break, we listened to our guest share her political journey and her decision to run for the highest job in the land. Dr. Ezekwesili, this is our Project Nigeria segment, and I know you already started speaking about the problems. Now we want to hear your vision, the solution. If you had to categorize or prioritize 3 major challenges Nigeria is facing, what will they be and what will your solution be to them?
So number 1 is what I call solving the poverty crisis, that we became the world capital of poverty. 87 million of our citizens in pernicious poverty, extreme poverty. And we overtook India, a country that's 7 times our population in that regard. We must tackle the poverty challenge immediately. That's why in my manifesto, the lifting 80 million Nigerians out of poverty is a centrality of what we want to achieve. Of course, while achieving that, we want to create the environment for the prosperity of every other Nigerian. And so solving that poverty problem is key. And our handle for doing that is, putting the private sector at the center of economic economic progress, while government does what it does well, what it should do well. So we're going to be very effective in the policy on the policy side of things, whether the whole macroeconomic policies, monetary policy by an independent central bank, fiscal policy by government, by an administration that understands that we really need to run very healthy budgets. We need to have structure of budget that focuses very well on the development of critical capital around physical capital of infrastructure, human capital of human beings who are healthy and who then get the opportunity for the right kinds of skills and knowledge and resilience. A government that understands the limits of what it can do in the economy and deregulates as many sectors as possible so that private sector has an inroad into those sectors that have opportunities for growth. What we're going to get is an economy that works. When that economy works on the basis of advanced progress in productivity and competitiveness. When that happens, what you have is jobs, and more jobs. And that means that you are solving the poverty problem, because as people earn income, they take themselves out of poverty. Then the third part of it is the conversation that look, really, oil has had its days, and we're probably in post-oil economy. Nigeria, we are doing a sea change where we're saying that education will be the new oil and human capital will be the new economy. That changes the mindset. That changes the kind of people who want to go into politics, because it's no longer politics of indolence, of waiting for the prices of oil to increase, and when it falls to start crying and saying, why am I unfortunate, which is what our president did.
What about the issue of security? I mean, your political journey is very much linked to insecurity, the kidnapping of our girls. What will you do differently, and how will you bring our girls back?
So they are all connected, because I was going to then say to you that that primacy of the Nigerian life is based on the fact that if the citizens are not alive, you're not able to convert them from just human beings to world-class capital, human capital, right? So you've got to have a security system that safeguards the lives of your citizens. That primacy, that dignity, that Nigerian lives matter kind of position in our administration means that we will broaden the concept of security of the Nigerian life to human security, where we're focused on ensuring that the signal we give is that, Nigerian citizens cannot be left to this kind of an almost to what will be. Just think of how people who can kill our people easily find it comfortable to live amongst us. They actually live on our territory, and we haven't figured out what to do with this. No, this kind of internal terrorism will not happen under my command as President and Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces. We're going to have to get these people out of our territory. So we will do immediately a very strong SWAT team that will focus on ridding our territory of those who hate us so much that all they do is inflict pain and killings. That's one. The second bit is reforming our military establishment. Then we would focus on professionalizing systems and command and structures. Then you look at preventive measures where intelligence assets have to be stacked up in our favor. Intelligence asset, when you build it up as well as you should, cutting-edge technology in today's world, collaborating and sharing systems with your neighbors and others, what would happen is that you would be preemptive and you would be proactive, and so you will be ultimately preventive. Then the final thing is this broadening. So it means that the economy growing, job opportunities, linking the rural communities that feel completely cut off from what the rest are doing. I mean, think of it. You go to some of these communities in the Northeast, you know that there is an absence of government. And because government is missing, any other person can come and promise anything, and there would be a substitute for government. So we want to make sure that the rural parts of our country feel connected to governance. And so jobs, jobs, and more jobs. We're going to figure out how it is that our economic policy arrangement would attract the right kinds of businesses, even to the rural environments. We have the thoughts. Go to oby2019.com and read.
Thank you, Dr. Ezekwesili. We'll be going on a quick break, but when we return, it's our light-hearted segment, the quickfire segment. Do stay with us. Welcome back to Politico Politica with me, your host, Isabella Akinseye. It's now time for our quick fire segment. Dr. Ezekwesili, are you ready? Number one, the first female governor will emerge in the next elections. True or false?
True.
The party that will dominate in 2019 is?
ACPN.
Young people have what it takes to be leaders because?
They've got the fire in them. And they can, those of them that dare to improve themselves daily can actually lead the country toward a new direction.
The funniest thing I've read about myself online?
When somebody said, oh, wow, she's actually very much in love with her husband. And I'm thinking, what were you expecting? You know, because I mean, those moments when, special moments when I talk about my husband, and then people sort of react to it with, oh, wow, you know, so she has a soft side to her. They don't know how really soft I am. I'm a soft body. People who know me well know that that part of me is just there.
Thank you, Dr. Ezekwesili.
Thank you so much.
We'll soon be wrapping up this episode of Politico Politica, but first, let's check out what's happening on the political landscape. Enjoy. Welcome back to Politico Politica with me, your host, Isabella Akinseye. It's now time for final word segment. So as the name implies, we want you to deliver your final words. So imagine you have that final breath and you have the ears and the eyes of millions of Nigerians and indeed the world. What will you say to them? And please say that to your camera.
Every generation has a duty that is set upon it. In the United States of America, JFK woke up one day and said to the Americans of that generation, we're going to the moon. It appeared like something impossible, and some people mocked because they couldn't see it happening, but it did happen. For our country and even for our continent, which Nigeria really reflects as the largest black country in the world, we are at a place where the world wonders why we fail so much. It is time for this generation, the young generation, the young people and the women of the continent to say, enough of the failure. Just making up their mind that the continent, the country, Nigeria will stop failing. And that Nigeria can claim the 21st century, and in claiming that 21st century through building a massive stock of human capital that would pull the rest of the continent along with us, and that mediocrity does not have to define us anymore. So as a final word, I say to the people, to the young people and to the women, that this is your season. This is your time to redefine what kind of politics takes us there. Plato was right. He said, if you say that politics is beneath you, you will be ruled by your inferiors. You will, I put it as you will be governed by your inferiors. We can see that what we've had as political class will not, if they were a football team, they would not make the FA. they would also not make the Premier League. To line up behind a person that you know that represents a change of direction for the country, governance for the people, by the people, and of the people. I am your candidate.
Thank you, Dr. Ezekwesili, for being our guest on Politico Politica.
Thank you.
And that's where we'll be wrapping up this episode of Politico Politica. I'm Isabella Akinseye, reminding you that politics is not just for the old, it's for the young, it's for everyone. So play a part and stay woke.